Now, variables, right? That's what we are about to discuss, right? So, first one about the variables and type declarations. This is what something which we need to perform. Okay. So, as far as this variables and type declarations are concerned, normally, mm, yeah. So, type declarations and variables and type declarations are concerned. Whenever we are working on the Gosu part, usually whatever the kind of type interferences we are using in order to eliminate uh, major vast of syntaxes, overheads, and all everything. Usually, there is a static typing normally we use, right? So differently, like because variables we have to declare. So for that variables, normally there are different variables which we can create over here, right? So if you want to create any kind of variables or something like, so we can create in variables, right? So what are the different variables we have? Something like variable you can give, uh, let's say that uh, we need to give the statement or something like it. If you want to create any kind of new column or new class or function or something, right? So if you want to create a new environment, everything we can create here. Right? So this is where generally the program, whichever is required, so everything we have to be mentioned over this. So if you want to create any kind of new Gosu classes or something like, if you want to create any kind of class name, or if you want to create any kind of classes, etc. So generally we have to provide some class statement and we need to be updated. This is something which we have to be done when we are working on the programming part. So whatever the program we have, if you want to run here, you can see. Yeah, so Gosu, right. So here you can see this is where generally this Gosu programming variables where we want to write it. So if you want to write any variables for type declarations, etc., this is how generally we write structure. So because variable we have to declare. Uh, so variable we need to declare the variable over here. You don't require to write because in the last sometime like I told you, you don't public static void, right? So you don't need it as like as Java, etc. Right. So for example, this is a string. Okay. At the same time, variable one equal to one, which is a number. Okay. Which is a number. Next variable guess if it is a string that is equal to null. Null, the statement or the result. Okay. So whatever the kind of result that we wants to be updated. So this is how generally this variable declarations which we have to be provided. So whenever we are writing down here, so this is how generally the variables and declarations we have to provide it over here. You can see like, right? So variable declaration we need to provide. Okay, this is where generally this variable declarations, everything we have to provide it. Wherein if you want to create any kind of a new Gosu class or class file, if you want to create, you can create new Gosu file class you can create. Wherein it starts with package track, right? So that's where generally class new. That's how we have to start, right? But whenever the kind of example we want to be provided, or whenever you want to provide any kind of code level information you want to create, if it is for the Gosu classes, generally this example we have to give, right? So we need to give this example. When you are running out, when you are running any kind of new Gosu classes, we are running. So this is something which normally we use. Otherwise, if you want to provide any variable declarations without any Gosu class, right? So as in when There is no Gosu class or something wherein we have to provide any kind of declarations or something like or something of that sort. This is where generally you have to write variable, uh, variable name, right? So name of the variable has to be given. Variable one, which is number, where you'll get string, null returns result, right? So this is how generally the variables and declarations we need to provide. That is point number one. Second one is called operators. Okay. The second one is called operators. Normally, operators means because whenever you want to work on the programming, because if Gosu wants to support any kind of operator, something like any standard Java operators and all everything, we need to make some minor restrictions and all so that we will be having operators wherein we need to write down. Okay, so different operators we must be knowing. So these are the operators essentially required when you are writing any code. Okay, because there are different operators as like as the similarity you can see as like as Java. Because I'm not explaining about the Java, but I'm explaining operators, different operators, especially for Gosu. The same thing as like as you see it, right? So this is how uh, generally the operators we are using, right? So these are all the different operators which normally we use, right? So for any another statements and all. So these are the different operators we have to use. Next. So these are all the operators we use, right? So this is normally this is for uh, this is for another statement. Let me write it here. It's better. Okay, for another statement. Then the statement this is being used. So yeah, because as like as Java operators. So this is the one which is majorly useful for us to uh, test for any kind of object equality. Right, so like equals to, right? So if you want to equals to or something like, right? So if you want to use equals to equal and you will put some brackets, starting and ending brackets. In spite of that, generally this is something which normally we use. The third one about this is, right? So this is what generally we use. This is used majorly to uh, give an instance equality. Okay, right? So if you want to provide any kind of instance equality, this is something which normally we use. Next one, right? So greater than or lesser than or the same, right? So this is the same as, okay? Because greater than or lesser than, right? So for that purpose, generally this is something which normally we use. Next one, greater than comma, lesser than or greater than, etc. Right? So etc. we are using. These are the standard comparisons. Comparison semantics. Uh, even because this you can write it as a note, okay? Semantics. And this can also works on java.lang.comparable objects. Okay. That's how generally we need to use it. So these are the different operators are we using because variables and type declarations we use at the same time. What are the different operators we have, right? So we need to use the operators, etc. Everything here. Next, after operators, as I told you, loops. Okay, loops are also important because any kind of loops, if you want to create, right? So either it can be examples, right? So for loop, okay, while loop, and do while. Okay, these are all the different loops which normally we use, right? So for loop, while loop, do while loop. These are all the different. Yeah. So these are all the loop statements. Okay, for do while, right? So these are all the for while do while. These are all the statements which normally we use um, for creating any kind of loops and all everything. Normally, because these are the loops, one by one you need to know. Because first of all, for loop, majorly, the for loop is the one which majorly allows us to iterate over any kind of arrays or anything that implements the Java language iterable interfaces and all. Generally, this for loop is being used. For example, when we are working on for loop, let me write that. For loop will allow us to iterate over both arrays and anything that implements Java.lang, because this is on Java only, right? Iterable interface. Okay, right. Iterable interface, right? So this is where generally for loop is being used, because for loop is separate, do while loop is different, while loop is different, right? So there are three different loops we have. So for loop, this is what generally we use it, because for example, if you are creating any kind of variable list or something like, right? So one, two, three. Okay. So if you are creating any kind of variable list and all, here we can write down. Okay. Right. So because if it is a general class file, then it is fine. Because if there is any kind of interfaces, or if you want to write down any kind of loops, etc., everything will write. I'll show you one of the examples one by one. Once the basics is completed, then I will explain you, right? So how this code can be written for all these, right? So different examples I'll be taken. So I will write down the code so that you guys will understand this well. Okay. Clear, sir? Right. So yeah, right. So this is where generally this for loop is something which normally we use. So whenever we are working on the for loop, variable we need to declare. It's a variable list, which is equal to 5, 6, 7. Okay. So we need to provide, but single line statement, we need to provide, uh, the single line statements. Single line statements we have to provide. That is required here. Variable list we need to declare. Declare. This is a for loop statement. Now we need to write down the for loop statement. For loop, the number in list. Okay. For loop, the number in list, wherein you can close, and you can close the statement. Now simply you can go ahead, right? So print number, and you can close the statement here, right? So this is where generally the for loops we have to write, because what are the different for loops if you want to create, majorly for us to allow any kind of iterations and all everything, we can create this for loops, etc. So that also we can do it. Okay. So this is how generally the for loops, if you want to create any kind of for loops or something like, so this is what something which normally we will be using. So while we are writing down any kind of for loop statements or do while, right? So these are the different statements which normally we need to write down. So to make it single range operators, right? So if you want to provide any kind of single range operators, or if you want to create any kind of ranges for existing programs when you got to write, etc. So this is how generally we need to provide. So we need to provide uh, variables we need to declare, right? So using variable declarations, these loops we can create. Okay, so these are for variables and type declarations, and at the same time operators, loops. Okay, this is what we have discussed now. And the next we need to discuss about the properties. Okay, so properties need to be discussed.